Donc, je laisse la parole à Mathis Sode. Mathis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, François. Merci. I'm Mathijs Soede. I leave my camera switch off because it's better for the connection. But here you have a nice picture of me, so then you have an idea who is the speaker. I'm happy to present a part of the Green Deal call, which is on energy related. I'm working in DG Research and Innovation in the Clean Energy Transition Unit, and main focus on offshore renewables, but also the geothermal sector. I was asked to present the topic 2.1, and that's of course a code from the Green Deal call. But I would like to say the Green Deal call is still work in progress. Until it is published, things can change, and I'm pretty sure there will be some change as well, because we are in a dialogue still with member states, with the program committee members, which have to adopt this call. And we try to improve even the call so that even more stakeholders can be involved, and that it is indeed exactly what is needed for the future, for the offshore development or the renewable energy, the clean energy transition. First, a remark about the Green Deal itself. Last year, our President Ursula von der Leyen presented the European Green Deal. That's a commitment from the European Union to become the world's first climate neutral continent. And that has a large impact to be in 2050, indeed climate neutral, but also thinking about a circular economy, that we think about the materials which are available and how that can be used in a very thoughtful way. This Green Deal is really a decisive action, and we have to reach the targets which we have for 2050. We have to invest in innovation and research, and it has an impact on the economy, on our policies, on our industrial policies, and it will have an impact as well on our daily lives at a certain point. The European Green Deal, as it is now, provides a roadmap with many actions, and on the way, it's work in progress. In the next 30 years, because we are now still in 2020, of course, you will find out that we have to do also other things, and that we have to accelerate maybe our actions, that we have to work more efficient. All the way along, we have to keep in mind this circular economy. We want to as well restore the biodiversity and trying to cut pollution. So it has a major impact on our way of working now. The communication as it is now, and you can find it on the internet, is of course available, is suggesting some actions for now, which we have to do. But in the future, there will be new actions coming in. The Green Deal is not just about the energy sector. It is touching, I think, all industrial sectors. It is touching the agriculture sector. It is the transport sector. So it has really an impact on many aspects of our daily life. Our main policies, our base policies, are that we have to change, in fact, that we really are striving for a deeply transformative change, that we really have to think about what should be done. This transition thinking will be important, and you need a kind of policy as well, because it's not only about very technical. You have to involve all the people to really get the support for this. We shouldn't forget anybody in this respect, and what you see down in the right bottom of this slide, you should also not leave anybody behind. It's not just for a few countries, no, it is for the whole of Europe. To realize this transition, of course, major investments are needed financially, so it really will be a point of discussion. And for that reason, to have this effectively, we really have to mainstream all our EU policies and to work together. So as a basis, we really want to do this because we can be a global leader and at a certain point even export our this thinking as well to other parts of the world. As I told you already, research and innovation, these are the different aspects. Because of Horizon 2020, we still had some remaining budget. We thought, okay, let's try to use this remaining budget to support the different areas which are indicated in the European Green Deal. And on all the different areas, we try to set up some research and innovation actions in support of this. And as you can see, it's indeed again about transport, energy, the agriculture, farm to fork, ecosystems. But our focus of today is, of course, the clean, affordable, and secure energy, as in this slide. Very quickly, the topics in the different areas in this Green Deal call. And because I will share this presentation with the organizers of this webinar, you can read them out by yourself later on. I'm just saying in the area 2 point on clean, affordable and secure energy, there is of course this offshore topic, and later on we will have the presentation on the electrolyser. But there are some other aspects later on in other areas which might be of your interest. It is multidisciplinary in fact, and it has an impact. For instance, considering 2.1, which is a topic on the offshore renewables, we are working in the oceans itself. But one of our other aims is, well, restoring biodiversity and ecosystem services, which means that the thinking over there shall have an impact as well on how you have to design your projects in the offshore energy. Because if you are going to test maybe offshore wind, floating wind or ocean, I will come back to it later, you have to think about, does it harm the biodiversity? Or does it even help to restore the biodiversity? And the oceans are a very vulnerable area, of course. And which you see, there is also strengthening our knowledge in support of the European Green Deal. It is also an action towards a transparent and accessible ocean, a digital twin of the ocean, and measurements of data over there. And there's always a bit of a balance which you have to make. We want to invest in that, but we have to take care as well for another aspect. And that will be shown as well later on in the call text. There is also for energy, I don't know if there is a presentation about it, but there is an action to work together with Africa and accelerating demonstration of clean energy solutions in Africa and the Mediterranean. I will not go into all these topics. For me, I was asked just to present the topic on the offshore. And what we would like to see, and is new innovative, the demonstration of innovative critical technologies for the offshore, and that the generated power and energy will be integrated into the energy system. Decarbonizing our energy system in Europe is the first step to be taken, and clean renewables is the answer for this. But we have to keep in mind that we need a stable and resilient EU power system. That's why we need as well the other topic, for instance, on the hydrogen, about storage. Considering this, we have different EU policies which we would like to support in this topic, and the Clean Planet for All is one of these topics, and they have indicated in this topic that the offshore can be really one of the drivers to go to a clean and resilient EU power system. But we need more efficient, cost-effective, affordable and secure technologies. And also, we need all the resources which are available. It's not just about the wind. No, we have to think as well, can we make use of the energy, the power which are in the waves and the tides? but even you can also consider maybe solar energy offshore, considering that, okay, solar is very useful as well in the transition, but onshore there are also limitations, and can't we make use of the solar offshore? It's also because it's for the whole of Europe that we consider different sea basins. It's really not about system just for the North Sea, it's also for the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, the Baltic, and also the Black Sea. So there are potentials for us for changing the energy system. I hope this slide is readable. There's a lot of text, but so you really have to study it later on by yourself. But in our topic, we have some proposed activities. First of all, we are striving for the critical offshore renewable energy, of course, but we are looking in the first bullet point for offshore renewable energy power generating systems, real demonstration of that. And it is technology neutral. I said already, wind, wave, tidal, solar systems, floating or fixed bottom. It's all, in fact, welcome. But of course, it should be innovative. It should be really having added value to the EU system. Just generation is not sufficient. You need as well a grid infrastructure. And here we would like to really see real-life demonstration of innovative critical parts of the infrastructure system, and also the management of that. And considering that we have different systems, fixed bottom, but also floating, especially in the floating part, you have to look to the dynamic inter-device, inter-array cables and connections as such. What I really would like to emphasize, we like to see the demonstrations at sea, that it is done at sea and not first onshore. I know as well, sometimes before you go onshore, you do a demonstration of a new wind turbine, offshore wind turbine, or a new hub, part of the infrastructure onshore. For this topic, we really want to see the demonstration at sea. Besides the generating system and the infrastructure, we have as well a bullet point on innovative offshore storage or power-to-X systems. We are developing, of course, already storage and power-to-X systems for onshore, but it might be interesting as well to have them offshore, because why should we bring first maybe the power to onshore and then convert it to in power-to-X, or that we have a storage system? If you can do it maybe directly over there and later on release the energy. For now, we say proposal shall at least address the generating systems and may have also the grid infrastructure and power-to-X storage system. You don't have to address all the 3 bullet points. I really like to clearly say that, because that's a normal question which we get. In the proposals itself, you really have to address a couple of issues. That is the industrial design and manufacturing processes which you have in mind, circularity, scalability. Is it possible to do the large-scale deployment later on, the installation methods, transport, operation and maintenance, supply chains, and also the related digital infrastructures. You have to make clear as well the regulatory, market and financial challenges, because this is offshore. It is relatively quite expensive, of course, to do this demonstration. There are quite a number of risks. You really have to show that you are capable to overcome all these challenges, but also to identify them. Working offshore means as well that you have to think about who else is using the sea. So marine spatial planning issues. Do you have the permits to do somewhere, and how are you dealing with the other users of the sea? So projects have to demonstrate the technology at sea, as I already told you, but you have to respect as well the existing environmental regulatory framework. It's very clear. People who have experience over there, they are aware of this, maybe, but for some newcomers might be challenging to do that. And in the project proposals of when you are really deploying the demonstration devices, present an environmental monitoring plan during the demonstration action as such, so that we can learn on what is really happening over there. Important aspect is, of course, as well, the knowledge sharing afterwards to really have an optimum dissemination and exploitation on this. Impacts which we would like to achieve is, of course, that your project will help the future rollout of large-scale deployment of offshore renewable energy. What is the market perspective? That it will contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. That's also what we have in mind for Horizon Europe. And in particular, in our case, on affordable and clean energy and on the industry, innovation and infrastructure. And we would like to see an increased incentive for the investment and economies of scale in the offshore. And that will help, especially when you are able to bring down the cost and create maybe also new business models for that. In general, your project shall contribute to the European Green Deal, the circular economy, and the clean planet for all in our recent policies. Some very practical aspects. Of course, what we would like to see at the demonstration is that you bring the technology up to a TRL of 7, well known, these TRL scales. The project itself, we consider that proposals asking for a contribution between 10 to 40 would allow the specific challenge to be addressed. Available budget, we have in mind 80 million, but I have to say this bullet point, the other one is at the moment a bit under discussion. So you really have to look when the call is published, what is really exactly mentioned over there. You can start, of course, already about thinking about what kind of project you would do, but you really have to read the call text when it is published. And I think the organizers of this work at the end, the transition piece, will also inform you when it is published and give you the latest information. I would really recommend you to consult them. The type of action is clear. It will be an innovation action. So there's no doubt when you bring your technology up to Tier 7. I think, okay, just about some scheduling, the agenda. We think that we really can publish in September, just after the holidays. I think it's what we all need for now. The deadline for the call will be already December, January. So that's a 3-4 months maximum to really write a proposal. But the most difficult part is to think about what you would like to do. When an idea is good, I think you can write it down in 2-3 months and find your partners and really make a good plan. The start of the grant preparation will soon start after the evaluation, which we hope to do in the first months of 2021. But I really would like to say we really have to do this all in 2021 so that the projects can start from at the latest on the 1st of January 2022. So that's a bit also for your time planning. I think it's for now. I can take already some questions now. I think that's good. Francois?
Yes, thank you very much, Mathis. Thank you very much. It's quite clear. We have a first question on the status of this draft. Some people ask, when will the final call for project will be available? During the summer, after the summer? And what will, in your opinion, what could be the difference between the final text and the current draft?
Now, what I think as well that we will most likely the available budget will be a bit lower. I think 10-15 million, and I think we are. There were some comments as well from the member state. They were saying, okay, projects of 40 million euros of funding is a bit high, so we will lower that a bit. Otherwise, I don't expect too many changes, so it will be 10 to 30. I think a reasonable, almost a final draft will be there in maybe 2 weeks, and the official publication will be, I think, just after the summer holiday, so after August. Yeah. Other question. Well, when there's still some time maybe to think about, because it's offshore and you really need permits and also financial close, we're going to build in, that's what we have in mind, kind of a go, no go decision. That's it's not in my slides, but our experience is that you need financial close, you need permits, but it's a bit of a chicken and egg. When your project is selected for funding, then sometimes it's easier to get the permit, or if things accelerate, you get as well a financial close. Other investors in your technology say, okay, because you get this grant from the European Commission, we like to invest as well. So we are saying that from after 1 year, approximately, there will be a go, no go decision where you have to show the detailed engineering plans, your permits, your financial close, and then we go on. Some external experts will have a look to that, which means that you have the things ready at the end of 2022, let's say like that. I think that could be very interesting to know. I know with innovation action that some people are saying, okay, it should be 3 years, it should be quite short. Look, for myself, it should be kind of credible. You have to prove something. So just the deployment of a device is not sufficient. You have to run it as well for some time. When you prove reliability and the real performance of the devices or the infrastructure. So it might take you maybe 2 or 3 years to really build the energy device and put it in the water, but 1 year of operation is, I think, minimum at the end of the project. Personally, I think for a demonstration project, 4 or 5 years, that would be, I think, an interesting time length.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if François-Xavier was able to get online again. Otherwise, I can keep on asking questions because we receive a lot of them. The question is the following. Does the call only focus on renewable energy production, or does the call also include the power to X part?
Now, generation is anyway the most important, but there is indeed a third bullet point, but it should be in connection then with the generation system. So, so you might have a combined generation, but also offshore power to X. But it's really about offshore.
Okay. Then I think this is the last question we have. How to bring innovation to offshore wind energy when there are already pilot farms? What are your expectations concerning that point?
Look, there are some pilot farms, but that is a very specific substructure indeed. What we need as well in the future, even maybe substructures, floatings, which are can even have larger wind turbines. The floating wind is still not fully, consolidated. We see some, but there are other solutions possible as well, which are more cost effective. And the pilot farms which we are having now, it demonstrates that technology, but it's maybe still not cost effective. And look, 20 years ago, there was also offshore wind farm. The first offshore wind farm was almost 30 years ago. And we still had to do a lot of research and innovation, new concept, new turbines, new blades, new generating systems, and see where we are now. It's even ongoing. Now, for floating, it will be the same, different substructures, leaning, the combination with the wind turbine, maybe even horizontal axis or vertical axis. I think it's up to the researchers and developers to come up with good ideas.
Okay, thank you. We received in the meantime 2 further questions. The first one is concerning the expected impact for this topic. So the person asked, Could you please explain at which point it is important to describe the difference between the performance we expect in the project and the current state of art?
Partially is the impact, but it is partially as well the innovation as such. Yeah, but it goes back as well to the excellence. You really have to show as well that it is a step forward what we are doing and what we would like to demonstrate. If it's really on the same, so that, yeah, that's part of the proposal. If it is the same of something which is already happening at sea or demonstrated, why should we invest in that? So you have to convince the experts, the ones who are reading the proposal, that your proposal is really a step forward. And it could be indeed in efficiency, on the reliability, that really brings down the cost. So that will have indeed an impact, but it's also a step beyond the state of the art.
Great, thank you. So very last question, which paves the way to the new European Research Innovation program, framework program, Horizon Europe. So the person asked, will there be similar calls under Horizon Europe, especially regarding this area number 2?
I can't say too much about that.
Of course.
But what I can say, this is, of course, not a one-off call. Some people say, oh, the Green Deal, that is the only call which is now, so we have to jump on it. Of course, in Horizon Europe, we will continue our efforts to do research and innovation in the different technology areas, in the different renewable energy technologies. So there will be as well calls on offshore wind, on ocean energy. There is a lot of work to be done to realize the Green Deal calls, targets which we have in 2050. So we will continue.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthijs, for your answers. Donc maintenant, on va passer au topic 2.2. Donc déjà, bon après-midi à tout le monde. Enrico Marsan, PCN H2020. Aujourd'hui, donc, pour approfondir le topic 2.2 du Green Deal, develop and demonstrate a 100 megawatt electrolyser, upscaling the link between renewables and industrial applications. Nous avons le plaisir d'accueillir Giulia Melica. Giulia Melica est gestionnaire des politiques et assistante du conseiller principal du directeur général de la Direction générale énergie de la Commission européenne. Merci Giulia d'avoir accepté notre invitation. Thank you very much, Giulia, for accepting our invitation. Avant de laisser la parole à Giulia, je vous rappelle que vous pouvez poser vos questions de préférence en anglais sur le sujet à partir de maintenant et tout au long de l'intervention de Giulia par le biais du chat. Et à la fin de la présentation, je me chargerai de poser à l'intervenant les questions reçues. Pour conclure cette séance sur le topic 2.2, j'ai enfin préparé une planche qui présente l'état de l'art relatif aux démonstrateurs d'électrolysers, les plus significatifs naturellement, financés par la FCH-GU dans les 3 dernières années. C'est là afin de vous donner un aperçu de la composition des consortia des projets dans ces genres d'écoles, sachant que le topic que nous allons aborder cet après-midi est pour taille et ambition d'une nouveauté absolue, comme Julia pourra nous expliquer tout à l'heure. Alors, cela dit, je passe à l'anglais. Donc, I switch into English to leave the floor to Giulia Melica. Giulia, please, the floor is yours.
Grazie, Enrico. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me in this webinar. So I think I have now control of the slides. Yes. So as specified by my colleague Matthijs in his presentation, please be aware that the information I'm going to present is not final, is not yet adopted. So there is still some internal discussion ongoing, and clearly it may change in the final text of the call, which is going to be published in September. As I said. So I'm going to present the topic on a 100 megawatt electrolyzer, and I'm going to provide a bit of context information for you to see why we decided to come up with this topic in this special European Green Deal call. As you certainly know, there is a lot of interest on hydrogen, both at EU level, but also at international level over the past couple of years. In particular, so at EU level, the long-term decarbonization strategy, A Clean Planet for All, which was published in November 2018, pointed to the importance and to the key potential role of hydrogen in achieving climate neutrality by 2050. And also mentioned that for hydrogen to contribute to climate neutrality, it has to be produced either from renewable energy through electrolysis or also from natural gas with carbon capture and storage. Then more recently, in December, the European Green Deal communication refers to hydrogen in the context of the clean, sustainable energy system of the future. So energy represents 75% of CO2 emissions, including production and consumption of energy. So it's really one of the most important sectors to decarbonize if we want to achieve climate neutrality, and hydrogen can play a role in that context. Hydrogen in the Green Deal is also mentioned in relation to industrial policy objectives and in relation to the research and innovation dimension, with a specific mention of the Clean Hydrogen Partnership in the Green Deal communication. In March, the Commission presented a new industrial strategy for Europe, and again identifies a number of key strategic value chains for Europe to boost economic competitiveness, to create jobs and growth, and hydrogen technologies are one of these value chains. So they deserve a lot of attention from an industrial policy, as well as from the other points of view that we mentioned earlier. And in this context, the new industrial strategy was also announcing the launch of a Clean Hydrogen Alliance. Then, just 1 month ago, the European Union presented its recovery plan to overcome the COVID-19 crisis, and stresses the need to work to invest in clean energy technologies and value chains. And also in this context, hydrogen is explicitly mentioned. So against this backdrop, the European Commission will publish in 9 days from now, so on the 8th of July, 2 complementary strategies: the energy system integration strategy and the hydrogen strategy. Some information from the long-term decarbonization strategy. If you can see in this graph that the power generation capacity is expected to grow sharply by 2050. So from about 1,000 gigawatts today to something between 2,300 gigawatts in the 1.5 life scenario and 2,800 gigawatts in the 1.5 tech scenario. So these are the 2 scenarios compatible with a climate neutrality scenario by 2050. And we can see that in this power generation capacity, a large share of capacity is represented by renewables, in particularly variable renewable energy sources like solar and wind, offshore and onshore, which can represent up to 84% of power generation capacity. So this increase is motivated by the fact that there is a higher demand of electricity also for the production of e-fuels, but also for the direct electrification of several energy consuming sectors. But it's also due to the fact that renewable energy sources like wind and solar, they have a lower capacity factor than other conventional energy sources. Clearly, with a transition to a power system largely based on renewables, we will need a stronger storage capacity. So all the scenarios which are leading towards 2050, which are drastically reducing CO2 emissions, they see also an increase in the capacities for storage. And we see a huge role for storage in the form of hydrogen. So in the 1.5 and 1.5 tech, 1.5 life scenario, we can see that the assumption is to have between 400 and 500 gigawatt of electrolyzers installed. And again, this would be also induced by the demand for e-fuels and hydrogen to be used in other sectors as such. So the Commission is now trying to sketch in its strategy for energy system integration how the energy system of a climate neutral Europe should look like in 2050, and to propose a number of concrete measures to achieve it. So this energy system integration strategy aims also to support Europe's economic recovery in the period after the COVID-19 crisis. It looks at the most cost-effective pathway for a decarbonization of the energy system, and also supports the European leadership in the development of new clean technologies and business models. It is based on 5 pillars. A first pillar, which is the energy efficiency first principle. So first of all, try to improve the efficiency of energy consuming processes. Secondly, when this is not possible, shifting to direct electrification of energy consumption based on renewable electricity. Nevertheless, there are some sectors where direct electrification is not practical or not cost effective. Therefore, in those sectors, it may be necessary to still rely on molecules. So this way, there is a role for hydrogen and other renewable and low carbon fuels for these hard to decarbonize and hard to electrify sectors. The final last two pillars relate to the energy market, which should become fit for decarbonization and distributed resources, and a more integrated energy infrastructure. There is also a cross-cutting theme related to digitalization and innovation. The energy system integration strategy will be adopted together with the hydrogen strategy. So these strategies really go hand in hand. Also, the hydrogen strategy will be based on the same principles and points to the fact that hydrogen is needed for those hard to decarbonize sectors, which are hard to electrify directly. So notably heavy duty transport, not only road transport, but also waterborne and possibly also aviation, and energy intensive industries. So, for example, in sorry, someone's trying to ask questions, or is?
No, I think there's someone who left the micro open. Can you please switch off the microphones, please?
Okay, then I will go ahead. Yes, so energy intensive industries, notably refining, chemical, petrochemical industry, but also in the longer term, also the steel industry may switch to hydrogen and thus considerably reduce their CO2 emissions. This hydrogen, so hydrogen, in order to contribute to energy system integration, has to be produced from renewables. So the hydrogen strategy is going to adopt a full value chain approach in order to upscale demand and supply of renewable hydrogen. It's going to work to engage with member states, regions, and industry. It's going to look at how to improve the regulatory framework for infrastructure and markets to make them fit for hydrogen and decarbonized gases also in general. It will clearly point to the research agenda and also to international cooperation. So in this context, it's clear that we need to improve and to upscale the electrolyzers capacity we have today. You are going to say more in details what were the projects funded so far, so I'm not going to mention that, but only briefly. We are now at 6 megawatt scale, so the biggest electrolyzer in operation is 6 megawatts. And in order to reach the capacities that we need to move to gigawatt scale. There is also an analysis done by the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, our in-house science service, that highlights that by 2050, we may need up to 900 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity. And electrolyzers, they can be installed, for example, next to existing demand centers in clusters consuming high amounts of hydrogen, and preferably be directly connected to local renewable electricity sources. Just to mention that research and innovation on hydrogen is normally done under the partnership between the European Commission and the industry, the Fuel Cells and Hydrogen Joint Undertaking. For the period 2014-2020, the EU contributed 646 million to this joint undertaking, and now it proposes to have it continue with a stronger focus on hydrogen production, distribution, and storage next to selected end-use applications. And research on hydrogen end uses will also be supported in the context of other important partnerships under Horizon Europe, for example, on transport and industry. There are also opportunities for funding under the Innovation Fund managed by DG Clima and under the important projects of common European interest when there is interest from member states. So I will be very brief on this because it was already explained by my colleague Matthijs in his presentation that the Green Deal call is a special one because it really tries to achieve clear, tangible results in the short to medium term. So the projects are normally larger in scale, in size compared to the normal Horizon 2020 goals, and there is really a need to show ambition to confront the climate crisis, but also to address the challenge of recovery post-COVID. Coming to the topic on electrolyzer. So the objective of this topic is to demonstrate energy system integration through hydrogen. So it's really linked to the upcoming strategies that will be adopted on the 8th of July. So produce hydrogen from renewables and use it in a commercial industrial application. In terms of final use of hydrogen, we are not prescriptive, so can be industry, chemical sector, petrochemical sector, whatever, mobility hubs. So it's entirely up to the proponent to decide where to locate the electrolyzer. The challenge, so basically the projects we have now in place, they are based on small modules. So I think the electrolyzer of 6 megawatt we have in Linz, which is part of the H2 Future project, is built with modules of 1 megawatt each. But if we want to reach the gigawatt scale, we need also to develop much larger modules. So this will be one of the research and innovation challenges of this topic. So developing modules which are larger than the state of the art with reduced balance of plant to manage efficiently the power and the output hydrogen and oxygen, and also try to valorize heat flows. So once we are upscaling the technologies, it becomes even more important to valorize all the output streams, not only the hydrogen one, but also oxygen and heat. And we wanted also to put some emphasis on that. Of course, it is important to ensure the reliability of the system and reduce the footprint through a more compact design. Then these modules will be put together to develop the 100 megawatt electrolyzer system, which will be tested and demonstrated in real life conditions. And they will supply hydrogen to the commercial industrial application. And at the same time, as a secondary revenue stream, the electrolyzer can also provide services to the electricity grid. One important thing is that for this topic, the funding rate is reduced to 50%. So acknowledging that this is closer to industrial deployment than other topics of the call. And the envisaged EU contribution is 60 million euros. In terms of activities foreseen under this topic, so as I said, development of these modules larger than state of the art, assembling the modules into a 100 megawatt electrolyzer system and have it tested and demonstrated in real life conditions, operating flexibly also to harvest maximum renewable power and supply renewable hydrogen to a commercial industrial application. So this project should contribute to demonstrating the future economic viability of the technology, depending on the cost of electricity and hours of operation of the electrolyzer, and to see how the electrolyzer behaves operating dynamically. So is the performance or the durability is somehow compromised? Are there some safety issues that need to be addressed? So this is something very important when we are looking in bigger scale and of projects. We also would like to stress the have an evaluation of the environmental impacts. So in terms of emission reduction and in terms of water consumption of this system, and also an assessment of other societal benefits along the value chain. Another activity which is important also in the context of the European Green Deal call, since we are going to finance such a large project, we want to have a spillover effect, a considerable spillover effect all over the EU. So we give a lot of importance to the cross-border dimension and knowledge sharing within Europe. That's why we request the project to also foresee the organization of 3 workshops, out of which at least 2 should be in the European countries. And in order to share knowledge on the experience gathered and the replication. So involving policymakers, energy stakeholders, and disseminate all the experiences, the practices, the barriers encountered in the implementation of this project. So this is particularly the case for sharing information also with other projects funded by the European Commission in the context of this Green Deal call. In terms of targeted impacts, we expect that this project will contribute to establish a European industry capable of developing a novel 100 megawatt electrolyzer using a European value chain. So it should really build on what is the European expertise and technological leadership on electrolyzers, and should develop it further. We have some impacts which are related to the technology, and these indicators come from the Fuel Cells and Hydrogen Joint Undertaking multi-annual work program. So they are defined in cooperation with the industry, and they were updated only a couple of years ago in 2018. So these are indicators related to energy consumption, so to the efficiency of the electrolyzer, related to the current density and delivery pressure, indicators related to the footprint, to the capex. Of course, this is extremely important because half, let's say, of the price of the hydrogen depends on the capex of the electrolyzer. So this is one of the key factors to reduce the cost of hydrogen for the end users, and improving the overall efficiency. So valorizing also the hydrogen, not only the hydrogen output, but also oxygen and heat. And with this, I've concluded, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Giulia, for your presentation. Indeed, we already received some questions after your slides. So I will start with them. So just a second. We had a question, for example, concerning the funding rate. So a person asked if this funding rate is also valid for RTOs and universities.
I don't know exactly how it's going to be translated in practice, but I think so. Yes, I think it's funding rate applies to the overall size of the project. Yeah. Then it depends on how the consortium is composed, but then I think it's an internal agreement among the partners of the consortium. But
okay, then another question concerning the role of research and development activities in this kind of project. So it's possible to have some RD activities included?
I think on this, the answer will be quite similar to what Mattei said regarding the offshore topic. So if these maybe lower TRL activities are linked to the impact, to demonstrating the impacts of this project, then in principle should be fine to have them included. If they are parallel and do not directly contribute to the success of this project, then it would be more difficult to have them positively evaluated.
Okay. Then I have a question concerning the source of power. Should the source of power be exclusively renewable, or is it possible to include decarbonized power such as nuclear, such is the case of the French power grid?
Well, it has to be 100% renewable. It doesn't have to be necessarily 100% coming from a direct connection to a renewable power plant, because otherwise we see that the electrolyzer would have a low number of operating hours. So it can also be grid connected and buy, for example, through a PPA renewable electricity from the grid. But in the end, the project has to use 100% renewable electricity.
Okay, thank you. Then a question concerning the technologies. So does a project demonstrating both alkaline and PIM technologies on two separate demo sites could be considered, or does the European Commission would prefer project focusing on only one technologies and those the demo sites?
Well, if there is someone who is able in this topic to finance two 100 megawatt electrolyzers, one alkaline and another PEM, I think it could be evaluated. But what matters for us is to have the 100 megawatt size electrolyzer. So here the answer would be no, we don't expect to have 50-50. For example, 50 alkaline, 50 PEM. But if the project consortium wants to do 100 PEM plus 100 megawatt alkaline, I think that could be fine. There would be 2 projects, but we would finance only one, I'm afraid.
Okay. Another question concerns the final cost of hydrogen mentioned in the text of the call. So I quote the text of the call. The Commission says, for a LCOE of up to euro 40 per megawatt hour, achieve a cost of green hydrogen below 2.5 euros per kilogram. So that's the cost of hydrogen mentioned, let's say the 2.5 euro per kilogram. Does it include the part of EU grant contribution, the final cost?
That's a good question. I think this is something we still need to clarify internally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Another question concerns, does the European Commission expect the 100 megawatt electrolyzer to be implemented before the end of the project? If not, what should be the minimum size of the prototype?
No, we want to see the project demonstrated before the end of the project, clearly. So we want to have, we put in the draft text of the call that the project duration should be 5 years with at least 2 years of operation of the electrolyzer in its real demonstration site.
Okay. Another question is about the role of human and social sciences in this kind of project. What is the role of this kind of sciences in this project?
Well, I think that might be a role. I think it's not explicit in the text of the call, but we could see a role, for example, in terms of perception of the new technology by consumers, in terms of safety, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, in terms of switching to a new energy carrier, of course, this will have implications for everyone to get used and to. I think it would be related mainly to the safety, to the perception of the safety of this new carrier. So that could be a component of the topic. Why not? Okay.
Another question. You are saying that ACE 2020 Green Deal will be different from previous ACE 2020 calls. In what sense? What is planned to allow convertibility of results into real industrial development?
But essentially, I mean, this call is different because it aims for clear and tangible results in the short to medium term. So to give high visibility to the results of research and innovation action, and as milestone towards transformation of, let's say, the energy system, because now we are talking about area 2 energy. So we have a smaller number of topics which are larger in size and more visible.
Okay. Another question concerns the role of digitalization, so the ICT in this kind of project.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that should be related to how the electrolyzer behave when it is grid connected. So to evaluate whether it is more convenient to operate in a flexible mode and provide services to the grid, or to operate, I don't know, full load and supply hydrogen to the final consumer. So in this, I think digitalization could play a role.
Okay. Then another question is the following. Could it be a decentralized system if it achieves the size of 100 megawatt?
I think, I mean, if I understand the question, it means have different smaller modules, let's say smaller electrolyzers that achieve in total the capacity of 100 megawatts. I think that's what it meant, and this is not what we would like to see. So the unit should be in one place and fed by a single power line. And then it could, of course, supply hydrogen to different users, but we want to have one unit in one place.
Okay. Last question, Giulia. When the electrolyzer will be operated, it will allow the operating company to make money. Will this amount of money be subtracted from the European Commission funding?
Well, I think we have taken this into account by reducing the funding rate. So I don't think it will be taken into account again.
Okay, I think this was the last question. Thank you very much, Giulia, for your helpfulness, for your availability. And,
thank you for inviting.
I think that your intervention of Matthijs were very much appreciated by all the French stakeholders, and I hope that thanks to your intervention, French stakeholder will be able to prepare very successful proposals under this Green Deal call. So thank you very much for your time. I don't know if you have still more minutes to stay online with us to look with us last slide concerning the state of art about the great about the demo sites already ongoing in Europe. So the idea is to present you some. Pardon, I switch into French now. So. L'idée, comme je vous ai dit tout à l'heure, c'est de vous présenter rapidement la composition des consortia des projets dans ce genre de call. Donc voilà, j'ai choisi 5 projets qui sont actuellement en cours. Je ne pouvais pas rentrer dans les détails, mais je vous ai donné les noms de ces projets-là afin que vous puissiez après retrouver plus d'informations sur ces projets-là sur la base de données Cordis. Donc, le premier projet dans la liste est le projet H2 Future. Il s'agit d'un démonstrateur d'un électrolyseur PEM de 6 MW produit par Siemens pour produire de l'hydrogène vert et fournir également des services d'équilibrage au réseau. L'électrolyseur est installé à l'usine de production d'acier Voestalpine à Linz, en Autriche, et le coordinateur du projet est le fournisseur d'électricité autrichien Verbund. Deuxième projet, Demo for Grid. Ici, il s'agit du deuxième plus grand démo de type PAE. Donc, il s'agit de l'électrolyse alcaline à haute pression d'une taille de 4 MW. Fabriqué par l'entreprise suisse IHT. Les démos fournissent des services d'équilibrage au réseau et de l'hydrogène vert pour des utilisations industrielles et commerciales. C'est-à-dire que l'hydrogène produit est utilisé sur les sites du M-Price, un supermarché autrichien, une grande surface autrichienne, pour recharger les véhicules commerciaux de l'entreprise et aussi les véhicules privés, personnels. Troisième projet, Refine. Ici, donc, on passe plutôt un projet d'électrolyseur PEM. Il s'agit du plus grand projet d'électrolyseur PEM au monde, d'une taille de 10 MW, produit par les Britanniques ITM Power, installé dans une raffinerie auprès par Shell Allemagne. Et dans ces cas-là, l'électrolyseur produit de l'hydrogène vert qui est utilisé dans le processus de raffinage. Et des services d'équilibrage au réseau sont également prévus. Le coordinateur du projet est le centre de recherche norvégien Sintef. Jewels, c'est parmi les plus récents projets financés par la FCHU. Il s'agit d'un projet qui vise à améliorer la technologie de l'électrolyse alcaline à haute pression en vue de la prochaine génération d'électrolyseurs de 100 MW. Donc, le projet a déjà l'idée, donc, a l'intention de faire l'upscale jusqu'à arriver à atteindre les 100 MW. Et ici, donc, il s'agit du programme démo d'Europe au niveau de la technologie PAE, avec un électrolyseur de 20 MW produit par McPhy et l'entreprise italienne Denora, qui, dans ces cas-là, travaille sur l'efficacité des électrodes. Dans ces cas-là, il y a une production de méthanol vert. Et l'électrolyseur se trouve dans le site de Nouvion à Delfzijl aux Pays-Bas. Dernier projet, le projet Multifly. Ici, il s'agit du premier système au monde d'électrolyse à haute température basé sur une technologie SOEC produite par l'allemande Sunfire à l'échelle de 2,6 MW. L'électrolyseur s'est installé dans la raffinerie de Neste Oil à Rotterdam pour produire de l'hydrogène vert. Et ici, dans ce cadre-là, le coordinateur est le CEA français. Donc, voici ma dernière planche de ce webinaire. Donc, à nouveau, je switch en anglais. I would like to switch into English to thank on behalf of the Ministry of Higher Education and Research Innovation, as well as the ACE 2020 National Contact Point, the speakers, Matthijs and Julia, who will come today. Again, thank you for your availability to present us the Area 2. And je vous rappelle que l'enregistrement de cette séance sera mis en ligne rapidement sur le site h2020.gouv.fr et que demain vous pourrez assister à deux autres webinaires qui toucheront le domaine de l'énergie, donc l'area 3 à 10h et l'area 4 Energy and Resource Efficient Buildings à 14h. Enfin, n'oubliez pas que le PSN reste à votre disposition pour tout autre renseignement concernant l'area en question et que du 22 au 24 septembre, à Bruxelles, la Commission organise un événement de réseautage. Donc, il y aura la possibilité pour ceux qui le souhaitent de participer à cet événement de réseautage et trouver des bons partenaires pour vos projets. Donc, merci pour avoir suivi cet atelier et je souhaite à tout le monde une bonne fin de journée. Merci beaucoup.